Deputy Speaker, and it's a pleasure to be able to speak on the Appropriation Bill numbers 3 and number 4, and it gives us an opportunity all to talk about a number of things. We can talk about the overall economic standing of this great nation of which we are all so proud, and we can talk about the economic conditions in our states and more particularly, of course, as House of Representative members in our seats. I'll just make a couple of overarching comments in relation to this bill, and obviously we talk about appropriation, we're talking about money, and can I just say again to the people of Braddon, who thankfully many of them follow me on Facebook and YouTube, it's a great opportunity just to remind the people of Braddon that this government is in the business of repairing the budget. We are in the business of moving the budget back into a more positive position where we actually spend less than we earn, which would be a very good start. If we could get back to that point, it's going to be a long way back given what we inherited, but we are committed to it. I feel nauseous every morning, but not for the obvious reasons, Mr Deputy Speaker, when I wake and I realise that ka-ching, another $100 million we're spending more than we're earning today. I'll wake up again tomorrow and there it'll be again. It's a bit like Groundhog Day, $100 million every morning we wake up. We're spending taxpayers' money more than we're earning. Any idiot, any clown in any circus could tell you that that is unsustainable and it must come to an end. So with that as the backdrop to this bill, can I say that this government remains committed, absolutely committed, to reducing expenditure, getting the budget back into a repaired state where we're actually at least balancing the budget, but obviously moving to a surplus so we can pay off much of the mountains of debt that was left to us in 2013. I must take the opportunity, I'd be remiss to say that when we left office under the direction of Prime Minister Howard and Treasurer Costello, there were billions of dollars in the bank. The budget was $20 billion annually in surplus, and that was the condition we left the books in that year of 2007. And the people spoke. Democracy is a great thing, Mr Deputy Speaker, and the people spoke and they decided to elect a new government full of great ideas and apparently fiscal conservatives, according to the Prime Minister-elect of the day, Mr Rudd, only to find that after 6 to 7 very short but very long years, we came back to a position where the budget was in absolute disrepair. We'd ratchet up borrowings over $300 billion. We're paying over $12 billion a year just in interest. No capital, just imagine if that was your mortgage. No capital, just the interest. A billion, that's $1,000 million every month just for the interest. And as I said, while we're doing that, at the same time, we're waking up today spending $100 million more than we're going to earn today. So that's the backdrop to this bill, and I'd now much prefer to talk about some of the positive things that this government is doing, the impact of those decisions on my electorate in Braddon in northwest Tasmania, of course complete with King Island. They always get a little touchy over there, my good friends on King Island, when I say northwest Tasmania, plus King Island, which is a great place. Mr Deputy Speaker, I had the privilege just recently to visit, and I'll be going over to be a part of an official launch of a golf course, 2 new golf courses in fact on King Island that are going to be ranked in the top 15 best links golf courses in the world. So if you add those golf courses to the best beef in the world from King Island and the best cheese, you're in for a pretty good couple of days on King Island if you want to take your clubs. But I do want to report to the people of Braddon, Deputy Speaker, some of those things that I've had the honour, the privilege of leading in the last 2.5 years. Being an advocate in this place for the people of Braddon, that's what they elected me to do, to be a part of a government at a macro level, to get the budget back into repair. But at a micro level, they want a member that is prepared to stand up and fight for them on the issues that are important. But also, too, they want a member that's not prepared to always promise the world for the sake of popularity and then only to disappoint. They want a member they can not necessarily like all the time, but a member that they at least respect for consistency and telling the truth and being honest with people. When someone says, can you do this? It's far better to say, well, I doubt that I can. But having said that, Mr Deputy Speaker, I was thrilled as one of the first duties as the newly elected member of Braddon to be able to be a part of the centenary of Anzac, the local government grants program, government local program of grants for the centenary of Anzac, and we had 12 projects in Braddon totalling well over $120,000, and that was a thrill in the early stages of my being the member to actually guide particularly RSL clubs through that process. So, you know, the Devonport RSL, La Trobe and Tulla, the Wynyard RSL and Guns Plains, a very small community, the Ulverston RSL, and being able to buy uniforms for a group called the Historic Military Reenactment Group are now making the very ridgy-dig uniforms of 1915 available at each of the local communities in my electorate to have people march in and be seen in, for the younger people to identify, you know, what those men and women, but particularly the men, of course, looked like in 1915 in those uniforms, right down to the west coast mining town of Queenstown and the Burnie Regional Museum, who put on a magnificent display, the Smithton RSL, the Sprayton Primary School. The kids came up with a tremendous mural in their school to commemorate the great sacrifice of the Great War, and of course not to forget the little town of Penguin, who are obviously also recipients. On top of that, we've been able to have a tremendous program of addressing black spots on our roads. We've funded many in my electorate, I think 9 or 10 since I was elected. Nearly $2 million worth of funding has been contributed by the federal government to improve the safety of our roads. Just, you know, little improvements in small areas that have become dangerous and black spots for travelling motorists. I look back now over 3 years, Mr Deputy Speaker, and I'm sure we'll all remember, all of us in this House, about this time 3 years ago, we were always treading the boards and out on the doors and hustling for votes and listening to communities about what was important to them and making sure that we were, you know, advocating for their communities. And it was a thrill to be able to have a number of projects, some of which I'll go through now, that were a part of my election campaign, if I can call it that, and as the successful member or the successful candidate, I've been able to deliver on each and every one of those projects. Of course, the people of the city of Burnie, which is the second biggest city in my electorate, were absolutely thrilled when we promised as a government $3 million to help build a new 25-metre indoor pool. I'm pleased to report to the Parliament that is probably 70–75% complete. I had a visit there a week or so ago, and there'll be a tremendous new facility linked into the PCYC club, giving much more access to the community, giving all-round weather access, which is pretty important in Tasmania, Mr Deputy Speaker, where we have a significant amount of the nation's rainfall. And we need to capture more of it too, I must say, as I talk about that. We're just going through a very dry spell, and we need to be seeing more water infrastructure, dam and storage infrastructure around the country, but particularly in Tasmania. And I want to take the opportunity to thank the Deputy Prime Minister now, who has responsibility in that area, for his support and his office's support with the cooperation, the partnership with the state government, Tas Irrigation and the farmers, where we're entering into a well over $100 million fund for at least 5 new irrigation and dam water storage projects. So the Aquatic Centre, I'll get back to the point, is about to be open soon. It was tremendous to be able to see the Devonport Soccer Club, who have about 600 young people playing on that every week in mud because of the weather. Again, I come back to the weather. In Tasmania, we were able to provide some funding for synthetic surfaces for both of those fields, new turf replacements for the Merecroft Park Hockey Club, and the list just goes on and on, Mr Deputy Speaker. And these are the things that, you know, at election time, obviously sporting facilities and community facilities do get a lot of attention, because during the term of a natural government, the federal government in particular doesn't have any specific funding for sports infrastructure generally. It's not something federal governments normally, through the course of their term get involved with. That's normally left to local and state governments. So obviously federal election time gives the one and only opportunity through that 3-year cycle to work with local governments and state governments to provide the sort of community infrastructure that our communities are actually desperate for. We provided, through the first round of Stronger Regions, $10 million to the City of Devonport for their $250 million vision to rebuild a living city. This is the city where the 2 big ships come in from Victoria, Mr Deputy Speaker, and bringing hordes of tourists, an ever-increasing number of people visiting the great state of Tasmania. And the Devonport Council have got a grand vision for the rebirthing of that city as the gateway to Tasmania, and I was pleased to be able to lobby very hard last year to have them as a part of the successful applicants of the Stronger Regions grant, and I'll be turning the sod. In fact, a sod will be turning the sod next week for this $10 million grant. We also had the Regional Development Australia Fund that funded 3 projects in Braddon, including an upgrade to the King Island Airport, as I said before about the golf courses and the charter flights that are now going into that island. It was important to make sure we got that airport upgraded. Over $8 million, in fact, in that area. We've got a whole heap of money for roads to recovery. We've got mobile tower, black spot funding, and the list, as I said, goes on and on. Can I also refer to a number of the other projects that we've been involved with, and we're working with a number of industry groups in co-investment, which is really important, backing those people that want to back themselves at least dollar for dollar, if not 2 for 1, whether it's Costa's growing an enormous new industry in horticulture and the berry growth, not just Costa, but other companies around the region that are now providing a huge number of jobs for locals, and I think that's just an amazing work that they're doing there. $9 million invested in a major irrigation scheme, the Dial Blythe, which has obviously still got some water in it. It shows how good that is. And we've been working with Hallmax, which is an advanced manufacturer business in the northwest, $3 million there to help them work on prototypes for a new mining truck piece of investment. Hydro Wood, I talked about that in this chamber before, where a company started a business where they're taking cranes and backhoes out into the middle of old hydro dams floating on the water out in the middle of these big dams and pulling up the older timber, the rich timbers of Huon pine and myrtle and blackwood. They're reaching into the depths of the dams, pulling them out and harvesting this timber for fine furniture projects and so on and so forth. We've been working with the dairy industry, investing in that major growth industry. I'll be opening officially in the next few weeks a new pickled onion production facility in Ulverston. You'd be amazed at where the bottles of those pickled onions are going around the country and around the world. We've been working with the Taran Tasmanian plywood mill. Another 50 or 60 jobs in a regional community like Smithton is just so important. Look, Braddon is a very special part of the nation, Mr Deputy Speaker. It's had its challenges. It continues to have its challenges. We've recently had to cop on the chin that Caterpillar, a major multinational global company, have made a decision to move their manufacturing production to Thailand, leaving only their research and development, and that's cost 300 to 400 jobs, which is a huge blow for a small community. But I can report today that there is still hope in the eyes of everyone in Braddon, including me, Mr Deputy Speaker, as the federal member for this great electorate. I'm working really hard with the local business, the Elphingston Group. They're a part of a significant bid that will hopefully be announced for down selection in the next few weeks. We're putting in a bid for the new Land 400 defence contract. I believe we've got the competency, and I believe we've got the capacity to and the facilities to deliver on this as a part of the Team Sentinel bid. I wish them well, because this is the hope we have in our eyes in the advanced manufacturing area, the advanced food production area. This is our hope. This is our future. But, Mr Deputy Speaker, I'm pleased to be the federal representative for our place, Braddon, and I'm pleased to dedicate myself to our future. Thank you.